Christopher Nolan directed SpongeBob.
Oh shit.
Like, it's very serious. It's got very serious undertones, but
Yeah.
I really like Adventure Time's writing because if you're an
Hmm.
adult and you watch that, it's a complete yeah.
Get the ball rolling, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm there, man. Let's rock and roll.
All right, so John Holbert,
Yeah,
John Hubert,
Holbert.
Holbert. Okay. Okay, so do you want to tell everybody on here how like what you do and what's your passionate about and stuff like that? A little bit of introduction about yourself.
Yeah, I'm the owner of Chasing Comet Studios, which is a multimedia production company. So I make cartoons and podcasts, graphics, um, videos, and things along that nature. My I started Chasing Comet Studios in February 2020. Yeah, just February 2020, about a month before the pandemic hit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, let's see, I started actually really doing cartoons when I was about 2 years old. My parents had gotten a divorce, and I would throw myself into my artwork just to try and work out some of the the emotions that I was experiencing growing up. And about fifth grade or so, fourth or fifth grade, is when Dragon Ball Z got popular.
Yeah.
And I suddenly had to up my game from just being a silly cartoonist writer, which is what I wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
to somebody that could actually draw, because all the kids in my class could draw all the characters from Dragon Ball Z. So I got a How to Draw Marvel book. I wish I knew the guy's name.
Yeah.
I'm sure I could pull it up on my phone because it's worth mentioning. It was one of those scholastic books that you would get from
The fair, the book fair at school.
yeah, exactly. And they would hand out the flyers, and I remember getting getting that book. If I pull my phone up, it was really cool because like what the book did was it would break down how to draw characters into simple stick figures.
Yeah.
And then it would talk about the different forms that you can take, perspective. Yeah, it was written by Dan Jurgens. You can draw Marvel characters, written by Dan Jurgens, and it's got a picture of Spider-Man on the front.
Yeah.
He's like half colored and half like.
He's human. He's human form.
Yeah.
Peter Parker.
And, there's a picture. He's web swinging away from like the Green Goblin, who's got the same color palette as he does. And so like it really taught me to recognize simple shapes in objects.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I'm looking at a barn, I'm not just looking at, if I'm going to draw a barn, I'm not just looking at a building. I'm looking at, okay, it's got a triangle for the top part of the roof, and then it's got a rectangle for the body of it or whatever, and then there's a three-dimensional thing, so you got to bring perspective points or points of I forget what you call the vanishing points in.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can do the same thing for like a human being. So if you take generally superheroes, the character's about 8 heads tall. So if you were to trace a circle around the character's head, you can take that same size circle and draw 8 other heads back to back right next to each other in a vertical line, and you get the character's full length.
Yeah.
Most people are about 6 heads tall, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And like so yeah, you can get the perspectives all right away, and the proportions as well, and then it teaches you now it's a stick figure. Now you can put cylinders on his arms and forearms for his biceps and his forearm muscles, cylinders for his legs and quads, and then after that it's just you're drawing over top of it. So when I was a little kid, some of us in grade would trace Dragon Ball Z characters, and then other people would be like, yeah, that's not how you do it.
Yeah.
You know, you're cheating or whatever. And then I used to think that as
Yeah,
well.
back then we didn't have YouTube just for the people hearing this, you know. So we kind of had to do word by mouth, and anybody else that could draw, you'd be like, hey man, show me how to do this, you know, or something like that.
So, but anyhow, when you're drawing a character, you really are just starting with a stick figure, and then you're tracing the next stick figure, but you're modifying the trace. So instead of like a straight up stick, you're drawing a cylinder around the the torso area to represent this is going to be his body, and then you just kind of chisel away.
Mm-hmm.
And you get better with that at time because you understand where, okay, well, this is what a quad muscle looks like. This is what his triceps are going to look like.
Yeah, you kind of set up the foundation with the big shapes, right? Like the square, the triangle, like you said, the roof and stuff like that. And then you add in the details. Mm-hmm.
I guess I should have led with this. The main focus of Chasing Comet Studios right now is to get an animated series off the ground called Junebug that I've been working on. It's a space western where 4 guys get a ship. It's about 200 years in the future. They get a big ship and they fly to Mars. And there's like a colony on Mars, and they're just trying to go up there because Mars is they're very independent. Like the government up there is independent. There's no BS, and the government and society on Earth has become just saturated with like toxicity and corporate control power structures and all this. So the whole idea is that humanity should move to a more decentralized kind of society. Mm-hmm. We should be more agrarian than in the cities. I think everybody should own their own like little 10-acre plot of land, at least 10 acres, and they should have a garden. I mean, they should have a 3D printer, and they should have everything that they need. Yeah. Right there, and then
be self-sufficient. Every home.
Self-sufficient. If you didn't want to go out and get a job, you wouldn't have to. So I think I think that should be the way that it is. I think that's the way that it was meant to be in the time they were writing the Constitution, because it was like an agrarian society at that time, and they came up with industrialization, which got us to the age of information, which might be able to bring us all the way back around to just being an agrarian society again. Yeah. Which is what I'm hoping for. So that's just like generally what Mars is in my idea. But this cartoon that I'm making, it's really silly, really goofy. It plays just like an old school radio broadcast where the characters were talking to each other and describing what's going on and stuff, because that's generally how you write for cartoons.
Are you gonna do where like it's in Mars and like some of it doesn't make any sense, kind of like SpongeBob, where they're like underwater and like stuff?
No. So think if Christopher Nolan directed SpongeBob.
Oh shit.
It's very serious. It's got very serious undertones, but it's I really like Adventure Time's writing, because if you're an adult, you watch that as a completely different cartoon than if you're watching it as a kid. Yeah. And that's kind of how I'm writing my thing out. Okay. So,
yeah. When do you expect to have this finished and like set for people to watch?
The first clip should be done here in about a month or two. Yeah. I've been trying to make it happen, and it's been a long battle, because like the animation style that I use is like Disney's frame by frame
Mm-hmm.
and South Park's puppet rig animation.
Yeah.
So I work at a program called Adobe Animate, which is formerly Adobe Flash, which is where I started before they rebranded it.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that it works is, let's say you draw a ball, and it's just a circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can take that circle and the symbol. So when you draw that ball and you put it on your stage there, or what for layman's terms is, that's the stage is what people are actually seeing. So you can animate stuff feasibly off stage, and the camera wouldn't pick it up. But and the stage it's like a 1080 by 1920 pixel little rectangle.
Yeah.
So that that's the dimensions of your average TV. I guess 4K is a little bit more pixels, but it's the same 16 by 9 ratio. But back to our program, you draw a circle,
Mm-hmm.
you fill the circle in, and you drop it on your stage. The stage has a timeline, right? Just like on a YouTube video,
Yeah.
you can scrub through, the video on YouTube. You do the same thing with the animation program. You just tell it how long you want your timeline to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's measured by frames, not by seconds. So and you can set it. I animated 30 frames a second, traditional lineup too. And my original timeline, my very first one, there's only one frame. And let's say it takes like 12 frames for the animation to play. So I can take that frame, drag it out 12 frames, and because that thing is 12 frames long, it'll play like all 12 frames. So it'll be just like a little clip. And then let's say I want that ball to start bouncing at frame 2, and then in bouncing at frame 10. So what I would do is on the original timeline, just animate it bouncing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have one timeline for the symbol to start bouncing, and then you have another timeline for the base to appear. So when you're looking at the video, all that technical jargon out of the way, you got a ball that bounces up and down, and then it smiles at you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So with June, that's basically how Adobe Animate works.
Mm-hmm.
With frame by frame, you're drawing each individual drawing out, and then you're playing it in sequence, just like if you've ever seen the behind the scenes video of one of those Disney movies or whatever, they'll teach you right there.
Yeah.
The South Park style is like a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
They don't typically do a lot of animations. What they do, they have like 5 or 6 drawings for, let's say you wanted to animate Cartman's hand opening and closing. That's probably 5 drawings, and then they put those 5 drawings into its own symbol, and then just have it play as it's like moving around and stuff. And so what I've and then as it's moving up and down, you just kind of move that symbol around on its own separate timeline, so it looks like he's waving and closing his hand at the same time. What I'm doing is I'm drawing out all these individual animations where it is a frame by frame thing, but then I can go back and reuse them for like later consumption. So like handy animations, like my character Clayton, he's this Indian guy that's from Ireland, and he's like a pilot. He's like 100 years old, got gray hair, and he's always ornery, and he's always mean to people and stuff. If I wanted to animate him starting the ship, I'd animate it once. His hand moving from his torso, extending, touching the button, and then retracting back to the starting position. I could reuse that exact same animation over and over again, and nobody really noticed.
Yeah.
Same thing with like eye movements, anything you can think of really. Walk cycles.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's pretty much that. But like the animation stuff, I'm just working on my own cartoon series.
Yeah.
After I get done with that, I'm thinking about doing a cartoon called Non-Filtered. It's like an adult cartoon, South Park style writing. Yeah. And like the characters are, I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't have that copyright, but I am working on stuff.
Okay, yeah. So
So
you got another series already planning ahead after you're done with this, pretty much.
yeah,
You know, and as a creator, you know, that's one of the things we always struggle with is like finishing off one thing and then we already have an idea for another and stuff like that, right?
yeah,
Well, it could be tough sometimes because you know you feel like, man, I can either add to what I'm doing right now, or like this could be like a separate, you know, whole other show or a whole other series I can do on this topic that just popped at 3 in the morning, you know, woke me up and stuff like that.
uh, so yeah, but how
Are
long
are you
do
gonna
you
be
want to cut it?
are you gonna be putting this on YouTube?
Yeah, yeah, it's Instagram. So Action Comic Studios on Instagram, YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, and Twitch. But I pretty much only and on TikTok. But I pretty much only update the Instagram because all I've been able to produce right now is just screenshots of the cartoon.
Yeah.
So, you know, my original plan was just start doing you know, social media posts left and right, and just hashtagging them and stuff. I haven't been getting around to it, man. Life's been crazy,
Yeah.
and some things came up that made me put the career on the back burner. But yeah, I mean, before too long, I'll have it up and out, and then I'll rock and roll. You know.
Yeah.
So
What were you saying about TikTok? You're not on TikTok?
I am.
Oh, okay, you
I
are.
am.
Okay.
Jason Comet Studios. I don't think I have any. Clips out on that one.
Okay.
If you go to the YouTube channel, there's like a lot of stuff that I've done for my clients.
Okay.
There's the number one live podcast in the world is Kill Tony, which is a comedian podcast. The guy his name's Tony Hinchcliffe. He works with another comedian named Brian Redband, who I guess he helped Joe Rogan a lot in the first like 500 episodes of the podcast before he went to Kill Tony.
Yeah. Is
They
that?
have a lot of famous guests on there, which is cool. I got to meet those guys when I was working at the comedy club, and I animated a couple of things for them. I did some stuff for Sam Tripoli and Eddie Bravo as well. That's on there. What else is on there? Oh, my demo reel is probably the best thing that I have up there. It's pretty awesome. If you go to the Jason Comet Studios YouTube page, there's like the very first video I think is like just like an amalgamation of like all the stuff that I've been able to do.
Okay. Right, I'm gonna check this stuff out because chasing comments. I should be following you already.
Oh, nice.
On YouTube.
What else you got in your bag of questions here, sir?
Okay, so stand-up comedy. We were talking about this earlier, before we got started. So, how was your experience with that? Like, you were telling me you got into it, and then you said something about like you plateaued, or you weren't really like feeling it, or it wasn't cut out as you thought it was gonna be. Something around that area.
Yeah.
Or?
Like I graduated college.
Mm-hmm.
I got into stand-up because there was. I mean, I'd always had an interest in it, and I got good at it. I got a good mentor. There was a guy named Bush Lord who used to work for Tommy Chong, or work with Tommy Chong, and Pablo
Escobar, the drug trafficker.
No, damn, Pablo Francisco. And
I was like, what a guy.
He worked with a lot of dudes in the '90s, and he kind of retired in Dallas. And I got to hang out with him quite a bit. I took his classes and stuff, and I got pretty decent. I mean, it got to the point where it wouldn't matter. And this is so far as
Okay.
I never really got any showtime. There was a couple of shows that I got paid to do, but like nothing at like a club or anything like that. That was outside of like a special event or a showcase or something.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I saw what they wanted for an MC, and I realized I got a long way to go to get there. Even though I have like obvious talent, it's just my writing style was dry and dark, and I'm trying not to be as dry and dark anymore. Like period, stand up wasn't conducive to that goal. So I worked a lot. I used to go to open mics every single night because that's what you do. And then,
is that what you think you got really good at it, or is it just like something you were naturally?
It was partly doing the open mic every night, and then it was partly I would go home and I needed more material because these people that I've told my jokes to have heard it 1,000 times because it's it's other comedians that are mostly at open mics.
Yeah.
So, we kind of just like show up the drugs, but like, there's sorry, I forgot.
No, you're
I haven't
good.
thought about this in retrospect at all since I took a hiatus.
How long was that? Like, it's been a while since you've done any kind of stand up.
Yeah, I think it was July or June or July since the last time I did it, and that was like 6 months ago.
Okay.
But yeah, so I started doing well at the open mics. I got some attention. I realized that somebody had posted one of the Facebook groups that I was following, DFW comedians, that they were looking for a cook at a comedy club in Plano, Hyenas. So I went and applied. I got the job. I started working there as a cook for a couple of weeks, and then I moved over to door guy. I did that for a while. The door guy had a comedy club that's basically security, the usher, all that. And then I worked there long enough to be like really good. I was like one of the most reliable employees they had. Go figure.
Yeah.
And then it came time. My buddy, who was also a door guy, shout out to Micah Brown, who voices Captain Taylor in the upcoming series Junebug. He was a comic as well, and he got promoted to general manager and came over to my store. So I worked with him for a couple of years, tried to learn the ropes from him. He was a good teacher, but oftentimes he was too busy with a job to like just sit me down and hold my hand and make me memorize everything. I just kind of picked stuff up like left and right.
Yeah, pretty much wherever you could catch from him, or like whatever small tips he could give you, and you could just like have to work with it, right? Because he was so busy.
Right. Yeah. And then the pandemic hits, and I stopped working at Hyenas, and I come back. Because 6, 7, 8 months later, Micah calls me, hey man, I need a good door guy. And there's a possibility for management, and it just at some point it just became obvious that it just wasn't worth it. So I didn't particularly care for the I met actually quite a bit of headliners when I was working there. For the 3 years that I was there, I met a different headliner every week, and a lot of the very. I don't really think I can come up with one instance where I met someone that was like happy on the inside.
Yeah.
I just I don't think I ever met anyone like that, with the exception of maybe this guy named John Stringer. There was a guy named Slade Ham that made it work. There was a guy named Tim Gaither who made it work. So, and those guys have like their own happy lives. Like Tim Gaither, I know he's married, he's got a kid. Slade Ham is like the coolest dude you'll ever meet. He's like real spiritual cat. You know what I'm saying? Anytime you talk to him, he's like emotionally intelligent. He's also intelligent about a lot of stuff, and he's kind and compassionate. So he's approachable and he doesn't judge you when you're talking to him.
Yeah, and funny.
And that's yeah. There's a handful of those guys that were just like diamonds in the rough, but like 80-90% of the industry
Just
was
miserable.
And it wasn't like they were bad people. It was just like they weren't happy with their lives, and I didn't want to. I just it wasn't worth it. You know?
Yeah, you don't want to catch that, you know.
Well, it wasn't necessarily that I didn't want to catch that. It's just like the outcome of being a public figure, having the like a spotlight on me. I just
Yeah.
You know, that's cool. That was really worth the risk, I think.
Yeah,
So,
I feel like you learned a lot, you know, that you go in there not knowing. Like, everybody sees that from this side, and you're like, oh, well, you know, I'm gonna do stand-up comedy. And it's gonna be something interesting. It's something I always wanted to do, you know. And then you put in the work, and then what you're telling me is like, damn, you know, there's so much more that goes into it. You know, it can be so dark, you know, with people, and it's just crazy, man.
yeah, yeah.
I don't want to cut you off, but like a quick question about this. So for someone that wants to do this, or a beginner, someone starting off, what kind of like any tips or like anything what you learned you would tell them?
Go to an open mic, observe an open mic, see how it works if you have to. Go to 3, don't go to any. Whatever preparation that you think you need to do, like, you know, go read a book about stand-up, or go read a book about, you know, writing jokes, or go read a book about, you know, whatever. Listen to some podcasts. Do all that stuff. That's all great. But if you really want to do it, you're ultimately going to have to pick a date, go up,
And get on stage.
Get on stage,
And
bomb,
bomb.
get over it, and then go back again. You'll probably. I mean, with me, I quit bombing about the 4th or 5th time I started doing stand-up. I felt like I figured it out. I was like, okay, because I've been funny my entire life. I've been the class clown my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
I figured out comedic timing pretty early on. I figured out you know, what kind of things to say that will just like make people look at you and like this is a useful exercise. If you're thinking about something and that thing starts to make you laugh, then start thinking about how to like start imagining scenarios where you tell that funny idea to someone and then they laugh, and you're imagining them laughing, right?
Yeah.
And then go from that. That feeling that you get it'll take over like the muse, and it'll turn itself into a joke that you can take on stage, like a one-liner. Those are really easy to write for me. Some people are better at stories. I'm kind of my talent is probably 60% one-liners, 40% stories, but my experience is probably 80% one-liners, 20% stories, because I like hitting a small subject and then going to the next one, and then going to the next one, and then going to the next one.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a whole lot of people do that. I mean, Mick Hedberg does that really well. William Montgomery from the Kill Tony Show does that really well. But that was always my thing. But yeah, you just find an open mic and go, and then find it and then go up and start telling jokes. And what'll happen is you'll start to make friends with the comics because they see that you're doing it.
Yeah.
And there might be a little bit of a territorial dispute or territorial whatever, because comics are territorial. It's weird. I was fortunate in that. I'm very blunt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very like to the point, no bullshit.
Yeah.
And I really don't care what other people think. I really just don't.
Yeah.
So anytime I caught a whiff of someone not liking me because I was good, or they were worried about themselves, you know, not being as good as me or whatever. I always just dismiss that stuff outright. I don't, it doesn't plague me. And then to follow that up, you be a really nice person.
Mm-hmm.
You be a really honest person, and you be helpful. And you make that community a little bit better by doing that. You know, I guess I learned that lesson as I was in stand-up, because there was a handful of times where I was just a straight-up arrogant asshole to people.
I mean, it's hard not to be arrogant, you know. It's just, for me, it gets hard sometimes, you know, because you feel like you're good at something and you feel like that's going to translate to something else. Like, for example, I turned the gym into like a hobby now. Like, I'm getting really good at it, and I go with that arrogance where, well, I'm gonna go do bioengineer, and I'm gonna be really good at it, and then no, you're not. You know, it's just.
I don't know, man. I think if you did the bioengineer thing the same way that you did the gym, then yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
take your time with it and start with the foundation. With the foundation. Yeah. Like with comedy, like I'm telling some of my coworkers and stuff or friends that I'm like, well, I'm thinking of doing a little bit of stand-up comedy, you know, here and there, and they're like, yeah, man, like if you do it, you know, let me know. You're pretty funny, and I can go see you. I'm like, no, man, you're not gonna go see me. I'm not gonna tell you, because I'd rather do it with strangers, because then you're gonna see me, and then you're gonna go tell everybody at work that I fucking suck, and it's gonna be more awkward at work than it already is, you know. But like to get back to what you were saying, is like you just have to get up there and not give a shit what anybody says, you know. Don't think about what people think, because honestly, they're gonna go on with their day. They don't care, you know. You bombed, 10 other people did too, and leave the ego at home. They're not gonna remember you. You know?
Yeah, that's very true. And you get better as you go along, just like anything. It's like working out. And then you make friends, and then they give you decent advice or bad advice, and you learn from that. And, maybe, you know, that's one of the things I would recommend too, is like go find a comedy club and get a job there. Like, don't worry about the pay. The pay's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. It's going to be like 12, 15, $17 an hour. Yeah, tops 17 an hour.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But if you're really into it, go work at a comedy club and talk to all the headliners, and don't hassle them. Like, you know, I'll tell you right now that I've ran into dudes that seemed like the real deal. You know, 400,000 or 500,000 followers on Facebook. You know, a special on some streaming service. You know, and then they look at you and they're like, oh, talent, and I can help you out. And then they totally try to screw you over. Like, I've had that happen.
Yeah.
You know, you have a discerning spirit about things. You develop that as you're going along, because it helps you deal with, like, you know, the obstacles that you'll face on that path. But I lucked out. I found a guy named Butch Lord. I had mentioned him earlier. That dude dedicated his entire life to being basically a comedy monk. I mean, his sole focus was to hone his craft, the craft of being a comedian, and his life was revolved around that.
Yeah.
You know. So and he did it for like 30 years. So like he was really knowledgeable. He was really good at teaching, and he was funny. I mean, he had a set. People would criticize him for not like having a whole bunch of new material or whatever. But he had a set. He had a club set that was like 45 minutes long, hour long, whatever. Mm-hmm. That he'd be able to just go up there and do, and. I mean, it made me laugh. I never got tired of hearing it. Anyhow, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, you just go to an open mic, make friends, go get a job at a comedy club, and sit there and write all day. But
pages,
it would be
back and forth.
No, not pages.
Front and back.
No, it would be. I'd be thinking I'd be thinking about what's funny, and then nothing would happen. And then I'd just be driving along.
That's the best
and
time.
Somebody would say something on the radio, and I would link that idea to the joke that I had just been formulating. I was like, oh, that's how I make that joke work.
Yeah.
And then I write that joke down. You know what I'm saying? Or if something funny pops in my head, you write it down. Some people like to like sit for like the first 30 minutes of the day and just write, force themselves to write anything, and then it starts to flow like that. There's 1,000 different ways to learn how to write and what to do and whatever. But the factor that seems to be most helpful is like consistency.
Yeah.
And your mom. Yeah, consistency.
What do you think about like comedians who do like skits, like on mostly like on TikTok or YouTube and Instagram? Like they're like real famous with these